Hello and welcome to episode 33 of Bloggers Are Weird. I'm your host, DJ Paris, from the blog thoughtsfromparis.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Twitter, and I have an app that is all of my stuff, my writings, the podcast, videos, for your iPhone or iPad as well as your Android device. So just go online to your app store and search for Thoughts from Paris and you should find me. Also, I built this new website, although it's not so much new anymore, but I just rebuilt it, and it's called famousfollowers.me. So again, famousfollowers.me, and it's really just a silly thing that I built that basically just goes through, analyzes your Twitter followers, and returns back any verified accounts, aka famous people that follow you. So go in there, check it out. It's just for fun and obviously doesn't cost anything. Today on the show, we have Kim Bongiorno from the blog Let Me Start By Saying. She's also an author. She's written books. She's been in other people's books. She writes on like 20 other websites. She's been in television, also on radio shows, and now this is her very first podcast appearance. So honored to have her. We talk about all sorts of things and how she got started in blogging and how she connects with other bloggers, how her writing process has evolved, as well as what I think is our most important part of the conversation, how we both agree that children should not call their parents' friends by their first names. Not one person has ever called me Mr. Paris. I'm just going to come out and say it. You're all terrible parents. It's easy to say that when you don't have children. So anyway, we got a great show for you today. So grab a handful of pills from the medicine cabinet when you visit Grandma or whatever your drug of choice is. Mine are those disgusting Entenmann donuts that nobody likes, including myself, but that I eat almost every weekend. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Today's podcast is sponsored by romance-text.com. Looking to reignite the passion in your relationship? You have to check out romance-text.com. This is how to use text messages to bring back the passion and reignite the spark you once had. Now, if you're thinking this sounds cheesy, or maybe it's just learning how to send dirty text messages, it's actually not. This program by relationship expert Michael Fiore has been featured in over 200 television and radio shows. This program has a money-back guarantee, is normally $97, but listeners of Bloggers Are Weird get a special price of only $47 for the entire program. By purchasing the program, you help support this show. Visit romance-text.com and get the passion back. Let's see. I forgot that you were in You have lipstick on your teeth, which I have given to several people. I forgot you were in there. Because I read it once, and then it was, like right when it came out, and then I always, there's like 50 people in there, and I forget who's who, but that's a great anthology.
Thank you. I love that one. And the way Leslie put it together, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I told her it's probably no coincidence that she put herself first in the book.
And her story, I got to read it before it was bound, and I was on vacation, and my sister-in-law was on vacation with us, and she happened to be sitting on the bed next to me, and she's like, "Would you stop it?" Because I was laughing so hard at Leslie's essay, I was shaking the bed.
Is that the one about how one of her boobs is bigger than the other?
Yes.
Yes, that's what that hilarious.
Marcia. Yeah.
She is, she's a treasure. I love her. But anyway, well, okay. So I am talking right now with Kim Bongiorno from Let Me Start By Saying blog.com. And she's also, as we were just mentioned, one of the featured authors in Essayists and You Have Lipstick on Your Teeth. She's also been in a few other books. I Just Want to Pee Alone, and then the sequel, which is coming out sometime this year, right? I Just Want to Pee Alone. Oh, it just came out. So if you go to her website, you can see all the books that she's been in. She also has her own collection of short stories, Part of My World, as well as a young adult novel that is currently in being, fixed up. Where is it at with that?
It's done. It's ready. And my agent has some publishing houses looking at it right now. So let's cross our fingers, shall we?
Yes. And it's exciting because like you and I were at the Irma Bombeck conference, the humor writers thing. And I had no idea that it seems like everyone there, and they weren't all bloggers, but it seemed like everyone there had a book they wanted to publish.
Exactly. They either had a book they wanted to publish or they wanted to get into anthologies or they were trying to get people together to create their own anthologies through self-publishing.
Oh, you know, and it was right. You're right, and it never occurred to me to put a book together. I thought that would be maybe I'll have to start thinking of that. I will tell you the funniest thing, and I don't know if you remember this. Did you go to the American Idol thing where the book slam or whatever it was called,
Oh, the
where people?
Pictapalooza?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember? I don't know if I've talked about this on the show before, but this was the funniest thing. Do you remember that extremely beautiful young, probably mid
With
twenties
the
woman
hat.
who I don't know if she had a well anyway, whatever. Yeah, maybe she had a hat on.
Hmm.
And she was just stunningly gorgeous.
Hmm.
And then she got up and did a whole book about how she wanted to talk about how she had herpes.
Yes.
And, and I just like as that, you know, sort of man part of me, I went, oh, that's too bad.
Oh,
You know, like the part of me went, and I have a girlfriend and I'm happily in love and all that. But I went, oh my God, look at this beautiful woman. And then I went, oh, now she's got herpes. And it was funny because that's exactly what she wanted to write about was like how jerks like me, you know, think badly of people who have herpes. And she said 20% of the people have it and whatever.
hmm.
And it was just really, it could not have been a more comedic moment. You know, she had to be like a stunning model looking woman,
She was a
you know.
knockout. She was truly a knockout. And she really did make a punch just by the fact that she was saying, I'm the face of herpes. And I mean, what a gorgeous face.
Yeah, it almost really worked better because she was pretty,
Hmm.
you know, because, you know, that's just the way that we sort of value beauty in our society is it has to be perfect and it can't have horrible genital
Right.
herpes or whatever she has.
It's true.
So,
It's true.
yeah, but I'm almost surprised she didn't win the pitch, quite frankly. I thought that was a slam dunk, but
You know, the concept was really good, but she didn't actually have a pitch pulled together very well.
that's true.
Hmm.
She was she, she was too busy applying Valtrex during the no,
Oh
okay,
my
that's
God.
terrible.
Stop.
That's terrible. That's the only herpes drug I know. All right. So anyway, Kim, what are you going to read for us today?
Well, first I'm going to read a piece that I did called Dear Beloved Children Who Insist Their Lives Are Really, Really Hard, because my children are now 7 and 9, and sometimes they huff and puff and, you know, hand to forehead, drop the hanky saying, oh, God, my life is so hard, Mama. And they really just don't have a clue. So shall
Okay.
I begin?
Yeah, let's do because we're going to do two stories from you. So let's start with this one.
All right, great. Dear beloved children who insist their lives are really, really hard. Oh, my sweet pups, you have no idea what you're talking about. The two of you live with both parents in a lovely home in suburban New Jersey that has a snack selection that rivals the average Whole Foods store. I was the sixth kid in my family. It was the 70s and I was the last of the litter, so I wasn't automatically fed each time I craved snack. I had to forage and was lucky my parents ever remembered my name. And if I ever whined to my mom during dinner that this chicken nugget's too bumpily and disgusting, and then pushed it away in a huff, I wouldn't be here today to tell you that you will eat the damn nugget like it's a savory golden fruit the gods plucked from the heavens and personally handed down to you on a BPA-free platter made of diamonds and Minecraft blocks. What's that? You're thirsty? You want me to get up and go get you an ergonomic thermos to fill with cold, filtered water from the fridge? Sorry, I'm too busy right now, lost in fond memories of the lukewarm tap water, lightly flavored with whatever happened to fall in our well that season, served in cups Grandma and Grandpa got for free at the gas station. You'll have to get that drink yourselves. Speaking of the good old days, when you pout and complain that the house is too cold, but your bathroom selection is all the way upstairs, I recall the fact that I spent 18 years inhaling lead paint and the fumes of generic brand cool cigarettes with the filters broken off in a tiny ranch-style house where the thermostat was controlled by someone who had lived through the Depression. Close your trap and get off your ass, kid. It's time to learn the term Darwinism. For Christmas, you finally got an American Girl doll, the approximate value of a small third world country, but a mere 2 months later, it wasn't enough. You asked, why can't she have a friend? I'll tell you why. Because when I wanted new toys, I'd use my allowance or paint friendly faces on the rocks I found in the backyard. Summer camp for us was wandering down to the local park. Camp ended when we heard our parents ring the cowbell or when the streetlights came on. My siblings and I never petitioned for more because we already knew the answer. Here's a hint. It rhymes with schmel schmo. We never complained about these hardships to the guy who fought in both Nam and the Korean War, as he nestled in his corduroy living room chair after another 14-hour workday. That kind of poor decision making would get you very large decorative wooden spoon removed from the kitchen wall and replaced right onto your delicate backside. Oh, are you bored again? Is there nothing to quench your creative thirst in the 8 drawers of arts and crafts storage cabinets? Think it's unfair I won't take you to the craft store today for something new? Back in the 80s, there were only 3 kinds of crafts in existence: friendship bracelets, latch hook rugs, and shrinky dinks. My friends and I spent an entire decade enjoying them without a single complaint. You might want to try that same technique right about now. When I was a kid, there were no play dates arranged in advance. When I was growing up, there were no extracurricular activities. We were too busy sitting in the way back of Mom's station wagon while she ran errands. There was also no complaining about being bored or how hard our lives were. We were too busy trying to stay alive. As a kid, did I have fun? Of course. As a kid, was I loved? Absolutely. As a kid, did my opinions or wants matter? That's adorable. Back then, the parents were in charge, and we kids figured out how to entertain ourselves and enjoyed what we could whenever it came our way. Or we just suffered in silence. Hey, that sounds like a great idea.
That, and I'm not a parent, but that is absolutely seemingly so accurate for what I see my friends, many of them, not all of them, but many of them doing with their children. I was thinking about this while you were talking. There are a few things I've noticed, and I want to get your opinion since you're a mom, and I think we're about the same age. So I'm curious if this is something you notice. But I'll give you an example. I remember back when I was in, I think 5th grade, I was at a summer camp, and I was lucky enough my parents sent me away to this like 3-week summer camp. It was real nice, but it was still just there wasn't electricity or anything. I mean, it was a summer camp, and I remember my mom sent me letters, and one of the letters said, we just got a filtered system installed in our water, so that the water that comes into the, we got like a little special spigot or whatever in the kitchen, and I was like, oh my God, we must be so rich. And that was like the biggest deal. I thought, I am so like, I'm going to brag about this to my friends. Because I only knew like one other person that had this. It was probably, $8 a month more, in the water bill. But it just seemed like that's what rich people do. And I think I wouldn't say we weren't rich, but we were well-to-do. And I don't remember having any of the luxuries or many of the luxuries that children today seem to have. I think it's that they have a lot more choice.
Yes. We didn't grow up with very much money, but I had some friends who were well off on the other side of town. And even those kids that had a lot of money, what their families had was they might have had the pool, or they had a nicer bike that wasn't a hand-me-down, or, they had these type of things. But there was no like, oh, you're going to horse riding camp for a week and, you can bring along your blah-de-blah, bring along your Atari with you or anything like that. It was less choices and more, use your brain, figure it out.
Well, yeah, and when I was in high school, and I grew up in Central Illinois, and in a really non-pretentious city called Peoria, and we, the difference between the kid with the richest parents and a middle class parents was just 1 degree less shitty of a car. Like, you still had a shitty hand-me-down car, and it wasn't like anyone was driving anything new and sporty and nice and whatever. And that was for, rich kid all the way down, like you were saying. And so I don't know. I see, it just seems like, and here's the other thing I wanted to ask you. I remember fearing my parents. I remember they were not my friend.
No, they were not.
No, they really truly weren't. Like, I didn't look at them as friends. I didn't confide in them when I was little. I mean, they were scary people, and they're the loveliest people in the world, and we have a great relationship. But I don't remember my friends thinking of their parents as their buddies. And I don't know, am I just not, is it just, do you see this? Is it changed, or has it always been this way and I just never noticed?
No, I'm right there with you. I mean, when we would be out, roaming the woods as we did in the 80s just to hang out, the biggest, most horrifying thing wasn't necessarily falling on a piece of construction equipment and, losing an appendage. It was, oh my gosh, what if mom and dad find out? That was it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
who cares if we burst into flames? If we burst into flames, we cannot let mom and dad find out. I remember my brother getting firecrackers and he lit it, stood in our front door and went to kind of like put his hand back by his ear and then throw it. And it blew up in his hand next to his ear. And he went deaf in one of his ears.
Oh
And he
no.
was, in his now deaf in one ear, he's screaming, "Don't let mom and dad find out." He blew up his ear and didn't want them to find out. Meanwhile, I walk in Target to go run errands and kids are walking next to their parents, anything from like, let's just say 5 years old onto teenagers. And I'm clearly a grown up and I'm tall, so you can't really miss me. And the kids will not defer to me. They will walk right into me rather than take a step to the side to look out. And their parents will see this and not even say boo. And
Yeah, well,
there's no fear of grown-ups. There's no respect or regard or deference or any of that. And it boggles my mind. It really does.
well, I will tell you where it started.
Tell me.
Or well, I don't know if it's where it started, but I will tell you one thing that nobody seems to talk about, and I cannot believe this just changed socially and no one has raised a flag. You're talking about, respect and deference, and how come no child has ever called me Mr. Paris?
Oh,
Never, not once. Now, you're a mom. Maybe you have some friends whose children call you Miss Bongiorno. Everyone else seems to they call me DJ. And which I don't give a shit. I don't care.
mm-hmm.
But I don't understand. How did that change? It would have liked to call my teacher by their first
Holy
name.
cow. I would have been knocked until next Tuesday if I called my teacher like, "Hey, Sue." No.
Right. So is that how it is where you are? Do the kids call their parents or their friends' parents by their first name? Or
When I remember when the kids were really, really little, and I don't know, I had two kids really close together in age, and I was insane for a while, and I just never really thought of it. And then once my kids were old enough, I was like, you know what? No, they need to start calling the people by their last name. So once my kids got old enough to really speak, I realized it doesn't matter if the preschool teacher says, "Call me Miss Amy." I want my kids calling grown-ups by their last name. And
I love hearing
yeah,
that.
some kids had a hard time saying Bongiorno, which that's fine. They would call me Mrs. B. And that's totally fine with me. I make my kids call all grown-ups by their last name or, sir or ma'am or, whatever. But no, the first, when a little kid looks all the way up at me and is like, "Kim, can I have a glass of water?" I'm like, "No, because you don't call me that." You can call me, such and such as mom, and then I will let you know you can call me Mrs. Bongiorno. Don't call me Kim.
Right. And and it's not an ego thing. Like, I don't need a little kid to validate me by calling me Mr. Paris. Like, it doesn't, I don't care, but I just think it means something.
It
And I
does.
think, and that's the part where I go, I don't care about me. I worry about this child.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if everyone else is doing it, okay, fine. Maybe we throw it out the window, but I don't get how that all changed. And I don't hear anyone making a stink about it, and I seem to be the only one that noticed. I mean, apparently you noticed as well, but it is a weird thing, and I just don't remember being, you were talking about, the firecracker in the air. I was whittling something with my knife, and I cut off a little part of my the nail on my thumb,
Mm-hmm.
and I got freaked out, and it was bleeding, and so we went to the hospital. I don't remember at any point my father soothing me, and he's a nice, good guy.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, okay. And I was like, I'm in trouble. I went to the, emergency room. They fixed me up. But I don't remember ever being like consoled.
Right.
And my parents were nice people. I mean, I'm sure they did to some degree, but not like what I see these days.
Oh no. When my brother, he's left-handed and he fell and cut right below his thumb, like where the meaty part of his palm, he almost basically cut his thumb off by falling on the sharp thing. And I remember I was no older than 7 because we moved when I was 7. I was no older than 7 years old. And my mom he had run into the house to tell our mom. And she was like, okay, she made me stay home. I was 7 to clean the blood up off the floor because he made such a mess. He bled everywhere. And she was like, all right, let's wrap this up and go to the hospital. You'll be fine. And that's all. He almost lost his thumb. He had to have it sewn basically back on, and there was blood everywhere. And they were like, "Oh, 7-year-old, can you clean up the blood while I bring the 9-year-old to the hospital?" That's all. That's all.
Yeah, things have changed. I'm not sure if it's necessarily for the worse,
Mm-hmm.
as far as how I see, because like I go to my friends have, their birthday parties for their kids, and oftentimes there's gift bags that all the kids get to take home. I don't remember. Was that a thing when we were little,
No,
or is that new?
it's so dumb. It causes me physical pain. I hate the goodie bag thing. Hey kid, why don't you come to this party? I'm paying $400 to throw. You're going to bounce around and have fun and party and play games and eat your favorite foods and then have cake and sing and not have to do anything, difficult whatsoever for hours. And because you made such a sacrifice to do that, I'm going to give you a present before you leave. Are you kidding me? No. Hey kid, enjoy your time and go home. No, it's not your special day. It's the birthday kid's special day. He or she gets the present. All of you guys bugger off. No, it's not your
But
special time.
do you have to do it? Is there like a thing where it's a social contract now where do you have to provide that? Is that kind of a understood rule, or can you get away with just having the party?
It's interesting. It's been a social contract for a while. And my way that I dealt with it, because I said, you know what, I'm drawing the line. I'm going to wean it off. So what I would do is I would give one thing that was like, for example, my son had a sports theme party when he was like 5 or 6. So what I did is I found kickballs. I gave each kid a kickball. I said, you know what? We're doing a sports theme. Everybody gets a kickball because you know what? America's getting fat anyway. So every kid, it doesn't hurt to give them a kickball.
Right.
And now I make the birthday parties now that my kids are 7 and 9. I shrunk down the parties. They can have like 4 kids tops to do something. That's it. I'm not spending a fortune. And if I'm only going to have a few kids, I'm going to, give them something to go home with to remember the occasion. I'm not going to give them a bag of, plastic choking hazards and candy just because everybody else does it.
Yeah, well, I think that's smart. And I remember having my mom throwing me really nice birthday parties, but I just didn't I was like, I don't think we had gift bags. I don't think that was a thing.
Oh no, we would go to the ground round and you ate popcorn off the table and it fell on the floor and you whatever.
Right.
And that was, a creepy clown came by and you're like, yay, this is the time of my life. And then they kicked you out. That was it. Or you got to play an extra round of Simon Says. Woohoo.
Right. Well, what's the other thing you're going to read for us today?
Okay, I'm going to read from my short story collection, Part of My World Short Stories, which I actually self-published this book in January 2013 to remind everybody who knows me as a parenting humorist that my first love has always been fiction. The book itself, I made it small and inexpensive. You can get the ebook version on iTunes and Amazon for just 99 cents, or you can buy it in paperback on Amazon for about $3. So today I'm going to read In the Trees, a fictional story. Okay. Bony, freckled knees pressed into bits of bark and stone, refusing to feel any more pain. Her faded t-shirt hugged her protruding ribs as she held on, hunched in silence. A lone tear followed the lumpy tracks down her cheek, jumped from her quivering jaw onto a thirsty brown leaf with a thunderous plop. Then the screen door squeaked open, and she took flight. Crispy twigs snapped beneath her bare feet as she ran deeper and deeper into the woods behind the house. She heard him rumbling and calling her name, his voice fueling her tired muscles to go faster, to survive. He knew her path by now. He was ready for the hunt. The clanging, unbuckled belt boomed in her ears as he gained on her. The woods were thin this time of year, not much to hide behind. If she couldn't outrun him, up she would have to go. Young trees teased her in this direction, so she moved east towards the evergreen. Hunger and hurt left her no choice. She had to stop running soon. She grabbed the first tree with a branch low enough to reach, and up she went. The pine trees were taller here, older, but the branches were too far apart for her to reach. She chose the wrong tree. His footsteps pounded close by. She stood as tall as her little legs could, her bloody fingers stretching, reaching, to no avail. A cry of defeat slipped from her lips, a knowing laugh barked from his. She would pay for this dearly. She didn't know whether the price was more than she could bear. Her eyes closed, her next breath came out as, please, and an inky hand reached down from the lush needles above, wound its many fingers around hers, and pulled her up. Another hand, then another, grabbing her arms, her legs, firmly but gently, pulling her up, up, up. The rush of green pine needles and black limbs blurred together. Then a flash of cobalt blue fluttered by, heading down. She looked beyond her dangling bare feet to see a flock of peculiar birds settle on branches below her. Their glossy feathers flickered at once and changed to the same greens and grays of the tree they perched upon, camouflaging her ascension. Her father's footsteps below came to a stomping end, and she knew he was listening for her, tracking her, trapping her, like he did the other beasts of the forest. He called her name once, twice, The third time's tone not quite as friendly. The familiar slide click sound of him readying his gun made her flinch before he had a chance to shoot at the sky. A warning. He wasn't done with her. His feet crunched in circles around the tree, eventually heading back home. Finally, she exhaled and looked up. Dozens of golden-eyed creatures surrounded her from above, covered in indigo pelts with long limbs tipped in mint-colored claws. They seemed to move as one, like a heartbeat, as if they shared a pulse, a train of thought, a common sense. "Thank you," she whispered, and the beast moved in a wave to carefully place her seated on a thick branch. The end.
Wow. You are a real writer.
Thank you.
we were we were just I was just talking about this with you the other day, that how much I respect people that can actually write. It's just like I have none of those. I can write about myself and make little jokes and things, but that's really, really nice. And so that is out of the Part of My World collection.
Correct. What I had done is I separated the book into 4 parts to show the different kinds of writing that I love to do. One part is people and places, like realistic people in real life scenes. I wrote a section of stories that are only 100 words long because I used to do a lot of writing prompts and whatnot. It's something I love, kind of forcing myself to keep it short. I've always loved fairy tales, so I retold some traditional fairy tales and wrote original ones of my own. And in the last section, I called it Turned Around because I wrote some stories that aren't what they seem, which is always super fun to write. So that's it. They're all in there.
Yeah, that's really cool. You have done a really great job of marketing your work. I know you've been on you've done some TV, mm-hmm. and how did you get involved with for example, I know you did Dr. Oz, and I know probably a bunch of our friends have done that. And I mean, I don't even have any idea how you guys do that. How do you get booked on a show like that?
It's every once in a while, if you have something go viral, you just kind of get on somebody's radar. And I had, my daughter's, I wrote a piece about how my daughter asked me if she would have fat thighs like me, and that got a lot of attention. And even though that's not a funny bit, it just kind of put me on the radar of certain television shows and press people. And, they kind of kept their eye on me. And if something came up, they would just reach out to me. So even though I got attention for something that was not funny, these media people kind of, bookmarked me and said, oh, okay, well, she actually does humor. I'll keep an eye on her. And then if something came up, then I would be reached out to.
Yeah, and I also see that you've written on about 20 other websites. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of the questions that come into me personally are, how do you get involved with other sites? So how did you start that process?
Well, I started my blog, let me start by saying, in 2008, because I had been writing online since 2003, but I decided I want to go pretty much completely anonymous, no pictures, just my name, Kim, that I live in New Jersey, and that I'm a mom married with 2 kids. That's all the personal information I would give. So I launched, let me start by saying, for that reason. Then in 2010, I said, you know what? I want to be a paid writer. So I decided to start by building up bylines by reaching out to websites that either republished stuff that you had already done on your blog, or you could write for them and they wouldn't pay you, but you could get some exposure. So I did some of those, and then people could, would give me feedback. I could see where I got better, or if they liked what I did, then I would start getting paid gigs. And In the Powder Room is the first website that hired me and started, paying me to write. And then after that, I started pitching other sites saying, I get paid to write here. How about I write there? So some of them took a little bit more persistence than others. For example, I pitched Nick Mom for 2 years. I knew I would be a fit for them, and they kept turning me down. I was like, no, you don't understand. I need to write for you. And it took me about 2 years of pitching them before they hired me. But and it ended up being a wonderful fit. But, you just have to take the chance and put yourself out there and say, hey, I can do this for you, and this is how I can do it. I think your audience would like me. And, the worst they can do is say no.
Exactly. And I tell this to people all the time. They go, well, because when I used to write for Aiming Low, mm-hmm. People would say, well, really good writers would say, well, I submitted one thing about 6 months ago and I never heard back. And I go, okay, well, what have you submitted since then? Mm-hmm. Because that might have just gotten lost, or maybe they didn't like it, or regardless, I would have sent 30 things by now, and just keep sending stuff all over the place. And you have to be persistent. And yeah, your quality has to be good, but just keep sending stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what Aiming Low said to me was, they didn't even put me on their like editorial staff initially. They go, you're going to write for free for a full year, and only then maybe we'll choose you to be one of our full-time guys. And that's exactly. And I was like, I'll write for free for a year. Sure, I write for free now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what I was willing to do to keep. And every 2 weeks or however it was, 3 weeks, I had to submit something, and then eventually they go, okay, this guy's proven, but it takes a long time. I think this idea of just something immediately going viral is just the fantasy that every blogger has, or even just that they're going to turn it into a business by just writing. And I think, that's very unlikely.
It's a lot of work. I mean, my husband and I sat down in 2010. I had a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I said, okay, this is it. I want to do this. And he fully supported me. And I said, I am basically not going to have a life off of the computer for many years if we want to make this happen. And he agreed. He's like, that's it. We're investing in this. I believe in you. You believe in you. Let's do this. And it's a lot. I sacrifice a lot. My social life in the last couple of years is diminished a bit because I'm sitting behind my computer writing. My novel itself is about 115,000 words. It's a lot. And that's one thing I've been working on. That's just one. It's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of commitment. And if you're serious about it, then it's worth the time. It is technically a sacrifice. I make certain things. But it doesn't feel like a sacrifice because I love it. I don't have an option other than writing. These fictional characters, they talk to me in my head. I dream about them. The real stories, I'll hear something on the news, and all of a sudden I have sentences forming in my brain, and I have to pull the car over and email myself what I'm thinking because I can't help it.
Yeah, let's tell us the story about, speaking of that, how you decided to work on your young adult novel was a dream that came to you.
Exactly. I had, I've always had book ideas and whatnot, and I had at the time been working on a regular women's fiction novel, and I don't know, I maybe had it about a quarter of the way done. And then on March 26, 2009, I had a dream that was actually a short action sequence. And in the dream, I saw myself and a friend of mine whose name's Sarah. I saw us do this little action sequence, and then it was it. I woke up and I knew that it wasn't really me and Sarah. It were these two teenage girls who had superpowers. I knew their names. I knew what they looked like. I knew where they were coming from, where they were going. I knew everything about them. And I was just like, this is a book. And I started right then and there. That's it. I'm writing this. And I've been working on the book ever since. It felt special. I dropped every other book idea that I had at the time, and I focused everything I could on this. That's what made me step up my game on 2010 to become a freelance writer and relaunch my blog and everything. I couldn't help it. It felt very special, and it just came to me, and I knew it. And all those characters, they feel like kids I hang out with. They really do.
Yeah. And this, because I think, and I think you sort of bring up an interesting idea, which is, you have a passion to do something. And I think what stops a lot of us from moving forward in these sort of creative endeavors is, we have these voices that say you should do this, and then you go, but I'm not getting paid. And I always go, getting paid is a byproduct of doing really good work and a function of time. Mm-hmm. And so I tell people is write for free. Like, it's perfectly okay if you're good and you have a good marketing strategy and you network and market and get your stuff out there and get in front of as many eyeballs as possible. And then the public will decide if you're worthy of getting paid. Mm-hmm. But if you just, there's so many people that just aren't willing to commit because they think, well, I haven't generated income yet. I mean, you've been doing this since 2008. It's a tremendous sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And now you're in a position where you are getting paid. And I'm sure that didn't happen right away.
No, it absolutely didn't. In the Powder Room was the first one that took a chance on me. And she, Leslie called me up and she says, I've always loved your writing. I think you'd be a fit. We're ready to start hiring people in, North America. Can you be my first staff writer? And I basically danced a jig, and I was like, absolutely. You want to pay me to do something I'm doing anyway because I love it and can't help myself? Yes, please. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you now, oh, by the way, just to make sure everyone knows where to find you, let me start by saying blog.com. And you can also be an advertiser on her site, which she has several. You can find her. In fact, if you go to her books, section on her site, you can go to all of her, you can purchase all of her collections and her own stuff.
Mhm.
And then also, how do they find you on Facebook and Twitter?
On Facebook, I'm Let Me Start by Saying blog, and on Twitter, I'm at Let Me Start. And
Perfect.
honestly, if you just Google my name, Kim Bongiorno, Bongiorno, I'm all over the Google.
Yeah, I just do that. I just tell people from now on, instead of trying to give them my Twitter handle and all
Hmm.
of that because mine's kind of goofy,
Yeah.
I just say just do a search for Thoughts from Paris. You'll find it.
Hmm.
I mean, if people really want to find you, they'll figure it out. But or they can just click right from your website to the various social
Exactly.
media outlets. Oh, and also if you live in Chicago, your husband's family has a good Italian restaurant here in town,
Absolutely,
Bongiorno's.
absolutely. And if they found out I didn't pimp it out, they would all come kicking me in the knee. It's Bongiorno's Italian Deli. It's right by the Trump Tower. And let me tell you, they feed me, and I am a happy, happy girl for it. It's fantastic. You can get pizzas and sandwiches and all sorts of Italian stuff.
Well, here's the bad news. We have 12 listeners, so that's not going to go very far. But no, no. So, and lastly, I wanted to get your take on networking because you are a very active social connector, and I know that I mean, people know you, and how did you start to develop? Because you have a lot of friendships with other writers, bloggers. Tell me how that has become important in your business as a blogger, or just in your ability to write, and how that's changed things for you.
Well, I'm kind of a social person anyway, and so the job of writing, sitting by myself in my office all day, is kind of strange that where you live in your head. So I made a point back in 2010 to start going to blogging conferences to kind of meet the people on the other side of the screen and build friendships. And, I met some people here and some people there, but it wasn't until 2012 where I had a bit of an incident at Blog Her 12 that really sealed the deal. I was at Blog Her 12 in New York City, and I ended up on the 42nd floor of a hotel with Jen of People I Want to Punch in the Throat, Andrea from Underachiever's Guide to Being a Domestic Goddess, Robin O'Brien of Robin's Chicks, and Leslie Marinelli of The Bearded Iris. We had been up there to do something, and we needed to get down. Now, being that I'm a vegetarian, I just take what I can get when I'm at conferences. I'll just, eat whatever they can give me. Sometimes it's a lot of bread, sometimes it's something else. In that case, I had eaten a lot of quinoa because it was starting to get trendy around then. It was filling, and that's what they had at every meal. So I figured there couldn't be a thing as too much quinoa, but it ends up I was wrong. Anyway, so I'm on the 42nd floor, and the five of us need to get down. A couple of the ladies in my group, they had anxiety about elevators and things like that. And all of a sudden, I had realized that I really needed to go to the bathroom. So I started doing anal Kegels, and we ran for the stairs. A nice man that worked there pulled us over and said, "Listen, I have a freight elevator. It'll get you down fast." And we figured that would be better because there was no waiting in lines and we wouldn't have to run down 42 flights of stairs. It was fine until the elevator doors opened up and some women tried to get on with these huge bags, and it set off the alarms. The women who had panic issues with elevators started to have panic attacks. People started crying. I forgot to focus on clenching, and I almost pooped in my pants. I'm like grabbing myself. I'm really like, I almost had an accident. People started yelling. I was like, listen, I'll jump out so the alarm stops so the ladies with the anxiety issues can get down to safety. I think it was one of the girls screamed at me. She's like, "Stay in the elevator so you don't poop yourself." And the other women were like, "Well, maybe we should get off with these bags." And everybody screamed and the doors closed. So we spent 42 floors with us crying, having a panic attack, singing, making jokes. I was clenching and like leaning against the wall to try to hold my poop in. Everyone was trying to calm each other. It was the longest elevator trip of my life with these girls covered in flop sweat. It was so crazy. We made it to the bottom floor. But then I had to take a different elevator back up to my room to use the bathroom because there were huge lines at the ones on the main floor. And then that elevator got stuck, and I almost had to poop behind a luggage rack in that second elevator. But the bellman who tried to calm me down, saying, "Oh, this happens all the time," he pried the doors open. I ran to my room and I used the bathroom. I just made it. Anyway, since that day, I've worked on projects with every one of those women that I was in the elevator with. That's the first real time we had, intimate conversations was when half of them were having anxiety attacks. I was almost pooping myself. Like, that was it. It was wonderful. It was a really strange, unique situation where the real parts of us were all coming out. Some of those parts of us being anxiety issues, some feces filled with quinoa. And the best part of it was in the middle of all the madness, the crying, the clenching, singing, and soothing, everything. Jen, the people I want to punch in the throat, goes, Kim, you have 24 hours to write about this, or I am. And being that we're all bloggers, we all just burst out laughing. And that was it. It was just this friendship happened because we all took the chance to face our own personal issues, go to this conference and survive it. And when we did, we made true friends and people that we could get involved with on the business end. It was really a strange but wonderful situation.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, I know all of those women, and I was at that conference, and I didn't meet any of those women, including you. Mm-hmm. And there are 5,000 women at that conference, yeah. And now, ironically, I also know those people, and I'm friendly with those people, mm-hmm. And that is just the power of getting yourself to a conference, yeah. And getting out there and meeting people and having fun, and then finding your tribe. And yes. And I think conferences, I know that there's a lot of, well, this conference is good and this one's not. And I always say, I'll go to anything. I really don't care, mm-hmm. Because if I can just, make another friendship. I mean, I'm a guy. I don't make any business connections. No brands want me to write for them. And I don't do that stuff anyway. So I don't care. I have no agenda other than, I want to meet really funny, mm-hmm. and cool people, because that makes me become ultimately a better writer. Jen telling you have to write about this, and she would have written about it.
Oh, she would have, and she would have changed the ending.
And she would have, and see, for me, if Jen would have said, if it was me, I would have thought she's going to do a better job than I will, so I better get this done quick because she's funnier than I am. So yeah. It is sort of interesting that out of those thousands and thousands of people, you end up connecting with the people that you find yourself attracted to, and then friendships forge. And I know that you forged those friendships because you see those same people at other events, and exactly. You hang out with them online,
and something good came from each one of the relationships. I mean, at the time, that was the first time I met Leslie in person, even though I'd been writing for in the powder room, but that was the first time we met. That's the first time I met Robin O'Brien, and she was the person who opened the door to get me the opportunity to get into my first anthology. And then as soon as I got that one, I ended up in 3 more after that. Jen ended up putting me in 2 of her anthologies. She had me be the opening essay in the first one. So these are people I connected with just on this organic way, and it ended up benefiting all of us. It was wonderful. And, as I recently returned from Blog U, a brand new conference, and it was all about finding your tribe. And it was nice to have such a small, different kind of conference where everybody knew, listen, we're going in because we want to find people that we click with. That was it. Of course, everybody learned things. I taught some sessions, everybody taught some sessions. But it was wonderful being at that conference. One of my highlights at Blog U 2014 was I was walking through the hallway at the dorm where everybody slept and going to one of the other faculty members' rooms to talk about something. And I stumbled upon, I don't know, maybe 30 attendees sitting in a circle doing like an open mic, sharing their stories. And it was so moving to see these women and this one guy that had come to the conference connecting and sharing and trusting. And I can see their connections online, because I'm the internet, I can stalk people. I can see how those connections they made at that conference are benefiting them now. I can see their numbers going up, their writing getting better, so many good things, because they took a chance on saying, hey, who out there will click with me?
Yeah, and I will not miss the next one, which you guys are doing them annually, is the thought?
Yes, it's going to be June 2015 will be the next Blog U conference.
Well, whether or not I'm there as an attendee or maybe a speaker, whatever, I'm going because what you guys put together was, I think, an evolution. Even though you weren't at the Aiming Low non-conference, mm-hmm. It was seems very similar in respect of smaller, more group-styled settings, and more sort of authentic and intimate, mm-hmm. Kind of connection, and that's I love that. I mean, the Irma Bombeck thing felt similar to that. Maybe obviously Blog U was probably smaller, but mm-hmm. I would have preferred Irma even if it were maybe been a little smaller. Mm-hmm. So
Irma was wonderful.
Great.
Irma really was wonderful.
It was fun.
Yeah, the
It was
interesting thing
fun.
about Irma was I am not a crier, and for some reason, at almost every session, at every speaking event, I started crying. Something moved within me, and that helped certain stories come out of me, which was strange because I thought I was like business, business, business at Irma, and it was this emotional journey I ended up taking. It was pretty crazy. So you never know what you're going to get out of these conferences. But something really fruitful comes out of all of them if you just take the
No,
chance.
you're absolutely right. And even if you can't make it to the conferences, join the Facebook groups,
Hmm.
join, get involved with the Twitter chats and the blog hops and the link ups. And it's just, if you don't know how to do that stuff, Google it. It's all out there and get involved because I'm in 3 anthologies this year myself. And I'm trying to think if I knew any of the 3 people before. No, I didn't either. Well, one person I knew, but they just one person goes, "Oh, this other guy's doing this thing, and he needs." It's and none of them are going to make me rich, but it's just, oh, it's nice to be included, and it's another little thing to put on my
Hmm.
my CV or resume or
Hmm.
whatever. And so it's just kind of if you get out there and network and connect, you will meet other people that will either inspire you to do other things, or write better, or maybe even just provide you opportunities that you
Hmm.
didn't have. And obviously, you've had both of that.
And sometimes people can see something in you that you didn't even know about and point it out and bring it out of you. And that in itself is worth the price of admission, worth the investment of time.
Yeah, I just got an. This is my little ego brag thing. Just yesterday I got an email, and this is a very uncommon thing that happened to me.
Hmm.
This happens like twice a year, but I got an email from a woman who helped. I put a collection of my blog posts in a book and
Right.
published it a few years ago just for a goof. And I had 25 editors. I had 25 people said they wanted to edit it. So I said, okay, you can all edit it. I don't care. So I divided the book up into 25ths,
Hmm.
which I thought was really funny. And anyway, so everyone got to edit. And one of the people wrote me back 2 years later, and she just wrote me back the other day, and she goes, "Hey, I have this idea that for a book that you and I should write." And I don't even hardly know her. I've never talked to her, and just helped edit a book. And she goes, "I want to write a book on let's write a book on shame." And so I don't know if I want to do that or not, because but anyway, it's she wrote me with an idea, and I'm not anybody important. So it was kind of neat to if you just put your stuff out there and you connect and you get involved in the community, sometimes ideas just get sent to you. I just had a watch company, and again, I'm a guy, so I don't get hit up by brands very often.
Hmm.
But I had a watch company just hit me up the other day, going, "Hey, do you want to review one of our? You want to give us, we'll send you a free watch and blah blah blah." And I always go, "I don't want that stuff," but I say, "How about we give it away to one of our readers instead?"
Hmm.
And they go, "Oh, even better," And so that sort of stuff is fun if you're willing to do that. See, that kind of work, because a lot of people go, "Well, I don't want to be a shill for a brand," and I understand that, and I don't either. That's not. I don't think that fits my particular type of blog.
Hmm.
But if I can still take that free item and give it away to one of my readers, that's an act of goodwill. And then brands really like that stuff too. So I always tell people who go, "Well, I don't want to write for a brand." I go, "Well, I don't either, but you can give the stuff away, and then whoever wants it can take it, and you can do some really fun things if you get your name out there."
I agree.
And
I completely agree. Sometimes the puzzle pieces they come together. You don't have to go seeking them out. And when they do come together, it benefits both you and the reader and the brand. And if it's not even a
exactly.
brand thing, if it's like that book that the woman had reached out to you about, something about you stuck with her from that experience. And 2 years later, you were there. She knew that you could do what it was. You were the puzzle piece that she would be missing from this particular idea that she had. You got to take the risk. You really do.
And you got to have a tremendous amount of patience. And it just has to be put your head down and do the work. And eventually, hopefully something, fruitful comes. And if it doesn't, it doesn't, but at least you did the work.
Exactly.
You get to be proud of the work. And then I've always said that, if you just have a somewhat of a marketing strategy, have some sort of idea of how to get your name out there, there's millions of blogs that, are probably very good that no one ever sees. So figure out a way to get in front of people, and then just keep writing. And eventually, hopefully something good happens.
Yes.
But
And I believe that if you show gratitude, you'll get gratitude.
no question. No question. So anyway, well, thank you so much for, let's go back. So read Kim at letmestartbysayingblog.com. All of her social media stuff's right there on her website. Also, all of her books. She's in, I don't know, 6 books or something. So feel free to review those. Also, she's got the young adult novel coming out, I guess, sometime in the next year, maybe?
Well, if you have a publishing house and you're looking to buy my book, let me know. And if not, then cross your fingers and hope that someone offers me something for my book very soon. I can't wait to get it published and in kids' hands.
And she also is a constant and consistent writer on her website. So visit her site and check her out. She's extremely funny, but also, as we've also just heard, very sincere and sentimental, and also writes for not just for adults but for children. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun.
All right. Well, say goodbye, Kim.
Goodbye, Kim.